Well, let's just go back to our breaking news story that Israel has launched a preventative attack against Iran. That's according to Israel's defense minister. Apparently, air raid sirens have been heard in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Witnesses say that they've also heard explosion in Iran's capital, Tehran. Sirens sounded in Israel as Israel warns of the possibility of missiles. That's the latest breaking news we're getting here. Let's just stay with this story and bring in Al Jazeera's Noor O'Day. She's in Ramallah for us in the occupied West Bank. Noor, just tell us what's going on in Israel at the moment.
Well, right now, the Israeli army has confirmed that it has launched what it calls a preemptive attack against Iran. It has declared a state of emergency throughout the country and asked citizens to be close to a shelter, whether in their homes, a safe room, or a public shelter. For now, there are no details about the targets of those attacks, but we understand that this is a campaign that Israel has launched, of course, in line with its publicly stated policy that Iran poses a threat to the safety of Israel, and its allegations that its missiles and its nuclear enrichment program also pose a threat, having repeatedly said that the negotiations with the United States were not going to go anywhere and should not have been trusted to begin with.
Noor, so what more have Israeli defense officials been saying? Because we heard from the Israeli defense minister that they've launched this preventative strike. What more details are we getting about the strike itself coming from Israeli officials?
Nothing yet about the targets themselves. But again, let's put this in perspective about why would such an attack happen. Israel considers the government in Iran a threat to itself, and so the launching of the attack, irrespective of the targets, is completely consistent with its stated policies. At the moment, the details are very scant, but the focus of the Israeli messaging so far has been domestic about what Israelis should be doing, how Israelis should be acting. But we already know that flights of foreign airlines that are on their way to Israel have started to turn back to their destinations. And this was, of course, a long time coming. We've seen over the past 24 hours some airlines canceling flights, some countries calling on their citizens to leave Israel while flights are available. That started with Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, telling his staff they can leave the country if they choose to do so because of the tensions. And now we know that those warnings were warranted. Other countries like the UK, France, and others had followed suit.
No, you've been covering this story for us for some time now. Would this preemptive strike by Israel have been given the green light by Washington?
Most definitely. An Israeli strike on Iran would not be happening in a vacuum, certainly would not be happening without U.S. approval. And let's remember that we have the USS Ford, one of the largest or the largest strike group in the U.S. Army, is on the shores of Israel for its protection. We saw fuel tankers as well arriving at Israel over the past few days, and we saw stealth jet fighters, F-22s and other fighter jets from the U.S. military also arrive at Israel. Overnight, we saw the Israeli army also deploy air defense missile systems in strategic areas in Israel, where the Knesset is, and other locations. All of that were announced as precautionary or precautionary measures. But we now know that this was in preparation in lieu of plans, it seems, to conduct that preemptive strike on Iran.
Yeah, and just talk to us, Noor, about those air raid sirens that we heard going off in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Just talk us again through what you've been hearing there about what's happening and what the civil population are being told.
Well, the civil population has been told to be near a shelter. In Israel, there is a very intricate system of alerts and alarms and public shelters, especially in Jewish Israeli cities. Palestinian Israeli cities, of course, suffer from a severe shortage. But there is a multi-layered system by which the government and public authorities can warn people to take shelter, to be safe. What happened in the past hour or less than an hour is that the Israeli citizens received on their phones alerts telling them that the Israeli army has declared a state of emergency, that emergency spans all of the Israeli territory, well, all of historical Palestine, really, because it did include also the occupied West Bank and Gaza in the map that was received on phones. And so illegal Israeli settlements all across the West Bank would have received the same warnings. And at this moment, what would happen is that Israeli citizens would be following instructions quite closely. If sirens go off again, alerting for a possible counterstrike from Iran, then that would be a different thing. But we are not there yet. We are now in the phase of Israel launching that attack and then possibly bracing for retaliation. But for now, it is just warnings. It is assuring the public that Israel is ready, that the Home Front Command is ready to give instructions in all areas, and that only essential activities will continue. So there is a ban on educational activities, gatherings, and going to places except for essential services. Basically, Rashad, all life activities, all ordinary activities have now halted in Israel because of this strike on Iran.
Noor, so we're just hearing now from the AP news agency, just sort of backing up what you've been saying there. Both AP and Reuters are saying, and this is coming from the Israeli military, that schools across Israel are now closed. The public have been informed to work from home. Public gatherings in Israel have been banned. Let me just repeat that for our viewers who are just joining us here. We're hearing from the Israeli military that schools across Israel are closed, public informed to work from home, and public gatherings in Israel have been banned. For those, Noor, for our viewers who are just joining us here on Al Jazeera for this breaking news, remind us again of the background to this and the time frame and the diplomatic activity that led up to sort of where we are now and why this has happened, because most people were focusing on the American military buildup around the area, but this has come from Israel itself.
Yes, it has. And this was something that a lot of observers had been contemplating, whether this confrontation with Iran would start with an Israeli attack. But as you said, to understand what is happening now, maybe it would be helpful for our viewers to go back to June of 2025. In that month, Israel launched strikes against Iran, several strikes, in fact, and a 12-day confrontation ensued between the two countries in which Iran and Israel suffered heavy losses from those strikes and counterstrikes. Now, the allegation in Israel is that Iran is preparing weapons-grade a nuclear stockpile, something that Iran rejects categorically, and something that has not been verified by any independent authority, including the IAEA, which had signaled its concerns from its observing missions about the enrichment, the fact that it was quite high. It was at 60% in certain sites. But those sites, those nuclear sites, were bombed. Now, that confrontation concluded with U.S. intervention, bombing two of the facilities, of the largest facilities, most protected facilities by B-2 bombers from the United States, and then a ceasefire was called. In the past 2 months, there have been escalating tensions that started after U.S. sanctions basically collapsed the Iranian economy. There were protests, large-scale protests in Iran, and Iranian authorities were accused of cracking down very heavily on those protests and killing hundreds of people. The U.S. President Donald Trump had signaled that he would attack Iran because of accusing it regarding its nuclear facilities, nuclear program, its ballistic program as well, and its crackdown on protests. Israel all along has been quite enthusiastic about these events. The Israeli Prime Minister, of course, has been advocating for toppling the government in Iran for decades, not just since June of 2025. And so we've had a flurry of activities in the region. Regional leaders, countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, and others have been adamantly against attacking Iran, against overthrowing the government, and they have been engaged with Washington to try and prevent such a confrontation. Several rounds of negotiations, of course, have taken place, the last of which was just 2 days ago. And then the Omani foreign minister, who was the chief go-between, the chief negotiator in those indirect talks between the U.S. and Iran, went to Washington and spoke with the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance, just in the past 12 hours, hoping that his efforts could avert a confrontation. But now we know that the confrontation will start from the Israeli front. Let me just update our viewers that the Israeli airspace has been closed, that Israeli security sources are now saying that the deal is done. Israel and the United States have assessed in the past 24 hours that there was no path for negotiations.
All right, Noura Day, live for us there in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank. Noura, thank you for that. Let's cross now to Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodder. She's live for us in Beirut. Zaina, we were talking earlier on about Israel using airstrikes again in Lebanon. Just bring us up to date with those airstrikes and how they fit into this broader issue now of Israel strikes, this surprise strike on Lebanon, on Tehran.
Yes, in the past hour or so, the Israeli army carried out a series of airstrikes in southern Lebanon, targeting a number of areas, particularly in the Iqlim al-Tufah region. What we've been seeing in recent days is an Israeli escalation in attacks. Yes, there's supposed to be a ceasefire in place since November 2024. Israel not complying with that ceasefire, near daily strikes since then. But in the past few days, we've seen this escalation, and Israel, the Israeli army focusing its targets on what it believes are strategic infrastructure belonging to Hezbollah. This morning, targeting the Iqlim al-Tufah region. This is a mountainous region where the Israeli army believes Hezbollah has rocket launchers, weapons depots, underground facilities. Just on Thursday night, they carried out a wave of airstrikes in the east of the country, in the Beqaa region, where Israel believes is the operational base of Hezbollah, where they have strategic weapons like long-range missiles, precision-guided missiles. So the feeling in Lebanon is that what the Israelis have been doing in light of these heightened tensions in the region is try to eliminate what it sees are potential threats in the event of any conflict between the United States and Israel and Iran. So stepped up attacks, focusing on what Israel believes is strategic infrastructure. The question that has been repeatedly asked in Lebanon in recent days is, what will Hezbollah do in the event of a U.S. or Israeli military strike on Iran. Hezbollah, of course, being a strategic ally of Iran. But another question that also has been asked in recent days is not what just Hezbollah will do, but whether Israel will carry out preemptive attacks against Hezbollah to eliminate what it sees a potential threat coming from this front.
All right, Zaina Hodder there live for us in Beirut. Zaina, stay with us for the moment, won't you? We're just going to cross to Alan Fisher live in Washington, D.C., our chief U.S. correspondent, Alan Fisher. Alan, this has come, I suppose, as a bit of a surprise because most people viewed the U.S. military buildup in the region, that the attack would have been some kind of strike from U.S. military assets in the region, but this has come from Israel. Presumably, Alan, Washington would have given the green light for this.
Well, certainly the indications are there that they knew something was coming, given that a number of embassies announced the evacuation of non-essential personnel. And we saw that with Mike Huckabee, the ambassador in Israel, making that announcement just more than 36 hours ago to his staff there. But you're right, people were expecting that there may well be an attack by the United States. Donald Trump had been talking about it. Of course, we know that Iran was involved in talks. The mediator said things were going well, but Donald Trump himself, on a trip to Texas on Friday, said that he was frustrated with Iran, but he hadn't yet made a final decision on whether or not he was going to launch a military strike. There are those in Congress who are dead set against the idea. But of course, there's a pattern to this. There's a mirror to what happened in the summer when we saw what the United States called Operation Midnight Hammer. That started with Israeli attacks in the first instance, normally to take out Iranian air defences, and then that cleared the way for the United States to launch their significant attack to, in Donald Trump's words, obliterate their nuclear program. The problem, of course, is the United States' position has never been that consistent because while we've heard from Donald Trump saying that he'd obliterated their nuclear program, we had a number of people, including one of the mediators involved in those talks in Oman, saying that now Iran was just weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. In 6 months, apparently, it rebuilt its entire nuclear arsenal. So, yeah, the short answer is most people expected some sort of United States action, so it is a surprise that Israel has gone first. But there will be speculation here in the United States, inevitably, that this is Benjamin Netanyahu once again trying to force the United States to take action against Iran. And the reason he's done this is to try and force their hand.
Yeah, Alan, are we expecting any kind of response at all? What are US officials likely? I don't know if we've had any response yet. We've not seen it here. In terms of this Israeli preemptive strike, because, as you know, Alan, this comes amid negotiations between US and Iran to get this nuclear deal that Donald Trump's been pushing for.
That's right. And ideally, he would like to see some sort of deal with Iran because he is aware that his own party base would be dead set against anything that looked like an extended war against Iran. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is there's no guarantee that the United States would walk away from this like they did with the strikes in June, essentially unscathed. And there could be retaliation. And as soon as American troops, American service personnel are injured or are killed, that will turn a great deal of pressure against Donald Trump, not least because he was the man who said he was elected to stop what he described as stupid foreign wars, and many in his own MAGA movement see a war against Iran half a world away is a stupid foreign war. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the coming hours, but certainly the time here on the east coast of the United States is just after 1:30 on Saturday morning, so we don't have any formal US reaction, and it's unlikely we'll get anything in the next hour or so, I would suspect.
Yeah, Alan, just before you go, just to remind our viewers who are joining us here on Al Jazeera for this breaking news, Alan. I mean, you know, we've seen the biggest buildup of US military firepower in the region since the US invasion of Iraq back in 2003. It certainly showed that the US wasn't posturing. We knew something was going to happen, whether it was from the US, but this Israeli preemptive strike has surprised us, Alan. Just bring us up to date, remind our viewers about the buildup of US military forces in the region and the buildup of tensions.
Of course, this has been going on for several weeks, and we're seeing a huge military presence, including the Gerald R. Ford, which is the biggest, most advanced aircraft carrier in the world, which, interestingly enough, is currently in Crete, undergoing a number of repairs, not least in the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, repairs to the toilets because they aren't working properly, and that has become a significant problem, both health-wise and morale-wise. But we've seen a number of planes land in the region at various United States air bases. We've seen the number of personnel increased significantly there as well. It is what the British used to call at the beginning of the 19th century gunboat diplomacy in the eyes of many, that we want to talk to you, but before we do, we are going to park our gunboats off your coast. And it felt to many that's exactly what was happening. And there were parallels to the Gulf War in 2003. While George Bush was suggesting that there would be discussions and there was the possibility for a peace deal with Iraq, the reality was you don't put as many troops as you did into places like Kuwait and around the region with the intention of bringing them home and doing nothing. So many people felt that the build-up would lead to something. But there is concern from Dan Kane, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that an extended war is something that the United States can't really control in the way that Donald Trump has been able to control the narrative for attacks in Iran last summer, for what happened in Venezuela. An extended war opens up the possibility of things going differently. As Eisenhower, who planned the D-Day landings, often says, plans are useless, planning is essential. So you plan for these things, but once it starts, you've no idea where it's going to go.